but it's also freedom to just be able to make your own decisions and freedom to be able to be clear-headed enough to reflect on yourself.
What was this pivotal moment that actually impacted that realization, that made you realize that,
it's getting comfortable to embrace that feeling of it's not amazing, but I have to do it in order to push myself to the next level.
Hey beautiful people, it's Vivien and I want to thank you, and please thank yourself for being here. Before we go into this episode, I invite you to join this channel to hear more episodes that will help you create a more meaningful life full of freedom, purpose, and deep, true relationships. All I want you to do is click on the subscribe button. I love your support and I can't wait to go on this journey of discovery with you. Thank you for subscribing. It means the world to me.
Hello, beautiful people. Today on the One Freedom Formula podcast, I have the luxury to have Sean Earley. He is an innovation consultant, a podcast host, a music producer, and a public speaker. He is currently the Chief Innovation Officer at a consulting firm in Germany called Robot Space IP, where he actually advises Fortune 500 companies and entrepreneurs on an organization, on everything about innovation, new technology, strategy, communication, marketing, and design even. But before his consulting, he actually was a guitarist. He toured and produced for various Seattle bands, and he spent his off time right now still making music. And in our episode today, in our discussion, we will go through how personal growth has been his criteria for reaching more freedom through his life. So, please join us because this is going to be really insightful. Hi, Sean.
Hey, man.
Been so nice to have you again today. We had you on my old podcast. I have you on this one. No. I always have a thing for discussions. I think they are so valuable. Today we are on the One Freedom Formula. So it's all about your freedom. It's all about, your life story. We may go through things that we've already been through during the other podcast, but I really want you to express what freedom is for you. And then that's my first question. Like, what is today freedom for you? And why is it so important? Because, it changed.
Yeah, that's a big question to answer, really. And honestly, I can't say I have 100% answer, but I guess if I can reflect on it a little bit, I think, I think when I was younger, obviously freedom was always this sort of pre-programmed thing of, you need to make a lot of money and have all the expensive stuff and, do all the things that everybody needs to do to be rich and famous. And, I think when I was younger, I always had, since I'm a musician, I mean, you and I know that, but I mean, the listeners probably don't know that, but I've been a musician for, since I was a teenager and went through the whole, Seattle music scene when it was popular and, saw a lot of people, in my sort of, community of musicians get rich and famous. And so that was that's the thing I got to do too. You know what I mean? So I have to be the rock star. I have to get the record deal. I have to be, I have to do all that stuff. And, for a long time, I think it was really that ideal of freedom didn't happen until you reached that certain goal. You know what I mean? And the older I get, and I think the more, get older and have kids and become more preoccupied with other things. So freedom to just be able to make your own decisions and freedom to be able to be clear-headed enough to reflect on yourself, and not be caught up in the treadmill all the time, And I think when I was younger, it was always treadmill led towards an eventual goal of freedom. And now it's more of a realization that freedom is now it is here already. It's more just a matter of how you come to terms with the fact that you always have it. And, since I don't live in some repressed kind of world, it's, Western culture, you are free, as long as you have a job and you can, you're not, you're not some sort of, addictive behavior or something that is taxing your, your ability to just function, then freedom is always there. And it's, for me, it's maybe we can talk on it a little bit more, but for me, it's more of a realization that that's really what you have already, and being comfortable with that. And on a daily basis, just knowing that I need to do more to make sure that that stays there without getting caught up in all the stuff in life that distracts you and makes you feel obligated to have that as a future thing you could never achieve. You know what I mean? So it's, I guess to wrap it up, it's more of an understanding that, being comfortable with the fact that what you have now, and enjoy that. And, it's hard too, it's really hard to realize that and live in the moment. I mean, ultimately you talk to all the gurus and all that kind of stuff. They tell you to live in the moment and enjoy life. And, in the back of your mind, that's what you should do. But at the same time, every time you open up your phone, you go down this rabbit hole that distracts you from that realization. You know what I mean? So I think for me, the big change is, freedom is what you make it immediately, and whatever you can do to ensure that that stays, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's an interesting point in that sense, because you have been through different phases of freedom, and you have looked at them through your experience of your life, and you're there and you say, okay, no, freedom is actually something that I always had through those times. And that, I just had to own it, to take it, which was not the case at that point in time. So if you look at it that way, if you look at it as something that you always had, but you had a realization, what was this pivotal moment that actually impacted that realization, that made you realize that, oh shit, I have it. It's there. I just didn't seize it.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't really put my finger on a particular time. I think it's just more of a slow transition, I think as I got out of my 20s, moved into my 30s, and started to realize that I'm a grown up now. I'm not playing little kid, move out of the house, first establishing your life kind of world, and I was in charge of my life and had a job that paid enough money to, be comfortable. I think it was, sorry, that's not, again, like, that's my dog groaning down below me. But I think it was just kind of a slow transition. Okay, this is adult life, and this is, your things aren't on fire anymore, and you're not struggling to pay the bills, and these stress levels that you have are sort of manufactured in your mind as opposed to legitimate threats, you know what I mean? And it kind of eventually, as you get older, you start to realize that it's really a mind game. And I went from just reacting to being, or trying to be proactive, and I think that's really the freedom point, is when you realize that if you can be proactive with your life. And, again, I'm not a master at it, but, just the realization that it's up to you to make changes to either ensure you stay where you are, or that you're comfortable with, or that you position to a place where you want to be.
So if I hear well, for you, freedom is also control.
Of course.
It means able to control your life, which, to be fair, as long as you have food on the table, a roof under your head, you're mostly in control of your life. But at the same time, working for people at one point in time in your life, which means you're relegating part of the control to them. How in that situation did you actually feel freedom?
In the situation of still being reliant on other people for, income and stuff like that. I think freedom is also, you can the realization that I don't need to take this job because I need it. It's a realization that, you know, if I don't like this job, I can get another one. You know what I mean? If I don't like where I live, I can move somewhere else. And I think, again, that's control. Even though you're reliant on things, you still have control on things that you're reliant on. And having enough knowledge and skill to understand that you're confident. I think, I don't know, I was listening to the podcast, a guy named Alex Hormozy. He's kind of like a super rich guy. You know, I think you follow him. I saw that you follow him on there.
Yeah.
There's a podcast yesterday, and he was talking about, I don't know what the topic, but he was basically saying the difference between, you know, doing anything really. The point you said, if you're doing a presentation or something and you get up and you feel nervous, you're not actually nervous. You're just unprepared. I think that was his point. And I was thinking, if you get to the point where you are prepared mentally to be able to transition to something, then that's a freedom. You know what I mean? And so I think that for me is a state of being knowledgeable enough and comfortable enough within myself to know that if I need to do something, I can do it. And so if you feel uncomfortable with your job or whatever, then you can make that transition. And I think that's, again, that's control, but I think it's also confidence in yourself and knowledge and experience to know that that confidence is real and not just this manufactured kind of confidence, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. So control, self-awareness, confidence. That's the three things that I found in what you were saying. But when you speak about confidence, there is a lot of like, you know, fake it until you make it, which is great to a certain point. I think when you pass the bar of fake it until you make it and you really are in that space of making it, that's where your confidence is real. And that's most probably, for me, where you have true freedom in that sense.
Yeah. And I think it's, you know, I mean, every kid, when they stand up or try to stand up the first time, it's a fake it till you make it. You know what I mean? They see their parents walking, and so they something in them does it, and they fall down and they try again. And I think, you know, the older you get, you fall down a lot, you know, and you know where your limitations are. And so I think, you know, there's different levels of fake it till you make it. There's like fake it because you have no idea, you know, or even a vision of where you're going, or it's fake it because you know it's possible and you know, other people have done it easily and there's nothing impairing you. So it's really just a matter of practice, I guess. So the confidence in knowing when you are capable of doing something, even if you haven't done it before, you know.
My point. You know, being able to do something that you have never done before. That's a really good question, because let's say you were a musician at the start of your career. Then you transition to, you know, computers. You transition to the artist side of computers, doing design and all of that, websites. When you look at it, when you started, you learned, but you never really made it. The first website, the first page, the first thing. I think that's part also of your story, and the story that I hear a lot about people that have confidence is they start something they don't know, they do it, they succeed. Even if in between there is a lot of non-succeeding times, they do it, they succeed, and they iterate, and they do that again and again and again.
Yeah.
And that's part of freedom. I think it's the freedom to experiment.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's the don't be afraid to fail and fail often, or, you know, embrace the suck, you know, because it doesn't matter what you do. If you never did it before, the first thing you do is probably not going to be perfect. And especially for me, for music, you know, I've not until recently been comfortable to just put out stuff that I personally felt wasn't amazing. You know, I've always played in other bands and played music for other people. And, you know, I've always contributed as a group to people. And so, you always have this group contribution to make something better. So you put in a little piece and then they take a little piece and it forms into something better. And I've always, sat on, ever since I had a computer and started making computer music, I had this gigantic hard drive full of music of little unfinished bits and pieces that always needed to be, on hold for that perfect moment in the future when I get the best band or the best singer to take it to the next level, and the older I get, the realize is like, I'm going to die before this stuff ever comes out, And so if I want to just do something with this and call myself a musician as opposed to just some archivist, you know what I mean, of ideas, then I better put this out, even if it's not amazing. And I started doing that, started just taking some songs that weren't done and just creating them as beats and instrumentals and uploading them for sale for maybe somebody who wants to buy them and put their vocals on it or whatever, and or just uploading them to Spotify because people maybe want to listen to it. And the point was not really the fact it was going to make me rich. The fact is just to have a mental practice of completion, because I know it makes me better, and I've seen the process in myself. And so again, it's getting comfortable to embrace that feeling of it's not amazing, but I have to do it in order to push myself to the next level, and I see that in myself, just sort of like a comfort on this sort of this feeling of everything is too bottled up, you know what I mean? And all this music sitting on my hard drive is this huge ball of anxiety because it's never finished, and I think just doing that,
and it's
it just opened up sort of a floodgate in me a little bit,
Yeah, because you're creating that anxiety out of nothingness.
Yeah.
Because it's there. You could actually release it, even if it's not perfect, which you have been doing, because I've seen that on Instagram regularly, and you're pushing things around on Spotify and stuff. So it is there. It is not perfect. But at the same time, if you don't give yourself the freedom of publishing it, then you're restricting your freedom, and then you're basically bringing yourself down to that ball of anxiety. And I think one of the things that you said, which I love to hear about that with people, is, the mindset. So for you, what is the role of your mindset right now in achieving that personal freedom? Because I think mindset is underrated.
Yeah, I think it's underrated, and I think it's also not something you achieve, you know what I mean? It's a constant state of change, and I don't talk about this too much, but just in the past couple of years, I made a lot of realizations about myself that I need to, that the desire to want to work on really hard, deep-seated shit, you know what I mean? And not just this sort of superficial go with the flow. And, I've had a lot of childhood trauma and a lot of experiences and a lot of things that have always been kind of pushed under, and just you go through life and manage. But it wasn't until recently where I made a decision, okay, I'm gonna tackle this and deal with it, because what do I have to lose? You know what I mean? And so I started seeing a therapist and just talking through things, and it's really been helpful to just identify your issues, decide you want to work on them, and talk through them, and whether they're fixable or not. It's just the feeling that you're working on something, you know what I mean? And the feeling that you're, I think with all types of mental illness and all that kind of stuff, it's always, they say depression is basically just a loop that never changes, you know what I mean? And I think there's so many people in life who just go through the motions and don't address stuff, and it manifests into all kinds of other problems and filters out into all the parts of life and other people and their family and all this kind of stuff. And so, even though I don't have any serious hardcore problems, but it does define who you are, and it defines, who you could be. And so, started doing
and it limits your freedom.
It does, really. And I think that's the point. Yeah. And it limits your ability to realize what you could have if you do work on these things. And so
Yeah.
that was a big life-changing thing. And I've only been doing it for 6 months now, but we're getting way deep into it. But I started doing EMDR therapy, which is this rapid eye movement thing. I've only been through a couple sessions, so I can't say I have a lot of experience with it. But just in the one session I did, we decided let's take one little kind of random thing that bothered me when I was a kid that kind of affects some stuff, not some big topic, but we took it and we did an EMDR therapy on it. And for me, I was kind of skeptical. I was kind of like, I don't really understand how this is going to work. You know what I mean? I'm going to do it. Let's just try it and see what happens. And I did it, and we use this light rod, and it goes back and forth. And the basic point for people who don't understand what it is you this light that bounces back and forth, and your eye follows it. If it's really fast, you kind of focus on a negative thing, and then when it slows it down, and you focus on a positive approach to that negative thing. And so I did it, and I kind of left the session and kind of walked around, and I was feeling like, well, okay, I don't know what, I don't really know what I just did. I didn't have some aha moment, you know what I mean? I didn't break down crying, have this huge explosion. But over the next week, for some reason, and I talked to the therapist and said, even this is psychosomatic, I don't know, which I don't believe anymore, but it was almost kind of like that one little thing that bothered me as a kid that affected me. It was like the volume got turned down to 1 as opposed to like a 7. And then from that point on, it was almost kind of like this little hole that got punched in me of fresh air in my thought process. You know what I mean? And I explained it that, and she said, that's exactly what that is. And for some reason, that little piece, that little box that got moved out of the corner, that little door that got closed, you don't need to deal with it anymore. Like my process during the day, my thought process, just it expanded just a little bit. You know what I mean? That you're like, wow, why the fuck didn't I do this 30 years ago? You know what I mean? And maybe I wasn't aware of what that possibility was, but it's really like, once you experience that thing, it's just like, I want more, And I told her, I said, wow, I'll give you a bucket list of stuff we can deal with. You know what I mean? Let's clean the room,
I know.
But that was really a pretty eye-opening moment that really was like, wow, it's really a good idea to work on stuff. You know what I mean?
That's the thing. You're working on stuff because you're aware of the stuff that you have to work on. You're saying you have a bucket list, so you know. So you have already given yourself the awareness of all of that. And I think, it's for what I've seen as coaching people and in my life, it's steps. You start with awareness. Whatever you want to achieve in life, whatever you want to feel better, have more freedom, success, be a better person, whatever it is, let's always start with awareness, because if you don't know what you want to achieve, can't really do it. If you don't know what are your traumas, what are your limiting beliefs, you can't do anything. But as you said, you know what you have the problem is. And then you want to look at it as, okay, what are the solutions? What are the ways? So this therapy is actually extremely powerful in the sense of, stressor against positive reinforcement. That's a bit of the concept behind it, to simplify it. Because fast light, your eyes, it's a stressor, slowing down, positive reinforcement. So it's something that we use a lot with NLP, for example, state changing, all of that. Those are great techniques because, as you said, when you start punching the hole, well, you expand. You expand, and when you expand also your possibilities and your freedom, because that's one less thing that is weighting you down.
And I think that's another form of freedom, is just not just like where you're going, but just clearing away the stuff that limits you, and you, like you said, sometimes you don't know what limits you until you actually sit down and you define it, and you take that list of things, and each thing you create, it's like if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there, obviously. And if you take that little piece and you define what you want to do with that piece, and you work on it, then that really makes a huge difference in your life, especially. And like I said, I just got started, but I'm really excited to see where that's going to go. I mean, she said, yeah, sometimes you might turn into a complete asshole, but maybe if that's good, if you like that asshole, that's a great place to be, but I don't know. I think, I'm really excited to see where that goes, because it was really transformative.
Yeah. I mean, one of those things that you could use, and I'm just thinking about that because, it's also tapping.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know tapping.
Exactly.
But, reinforcing after with tapping can be useful. Me, I walk my dog. That's my meditation in the morning and, and in the evening. I didn't have a dog personally. My grandparents used to have a dog when I was a kid, and my wife and kid were, let's say, pushy to have a dog, quite pushy. And well, they succeeded. We now have a dog, a small puppy. But yeah, people think it's a constraint and it removes your freedom. It kind of, but then you change your definition of freedom.
I agree.
Like that walk in the morning, that walk in the evening, that playtime, petting time, all of that. Yes, there is constraint, but I think that's one point. You can't have freedom without having constraints, because that become chaos.
Right.
It's like, let me. I've just seen the movie Bohemian Rhapsody again because I loved the Queen, the music and everything, and the story. But if you look at it, he had this period of time, Freddie Mercury, where he did everything he wanted all the time. But he had all those negative influence, all this past trauma from his parent, the childhood, the people, his physical trauma from his face. All of that buckled up into a chaos period where, well, we know how that ended. We know what happened to him, sadly. But you can see as soon as he got out of that chaos, got back to the important thing, the valuable thing in life, which was family, which was his friend, which was, his music. Then he get back to, I would say, a more free life, a more happy life. But he had more constraint.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody has to go through the Joneses, obviously, I think. But as I said, it's really just, it's how you think about it and how you approach it in a positive way. And like I said, I'm no pro at it. I still learn every day and try and fail a lot, but this awareness of deciding to make things better. And sometimes you just don't know what needs to be better. You're, like I said, your vision is always like, I need to get that more money or that more job. And sometimes the better is really just like what goes on in your head. And I'm pretty positive that once you work on that stuff, the other stuff even comes along, you know what I mean? Because if you reduce the limiting factors in who you are, then I think that opens up so many possibilities, or your feelings about them change, obviously, too, and I think, like, just as you said, we got a dog a couple years ago, and when we first got it, it was like, oh God, we have another child, that's what it felt like. And, it was challenging for a while, but then we did start to look forward to those walks. And I'm pretty sure, we're a lot healthier because we have to walk 2-3 times a day. And even though you sit on the couch and you got to walk the dog and you're like, oh, I don't want to do that today. But once you get out there and you're doing it, then you're like, wow, this is great. You know what I mean? And you value it once you do it. But sometimes, you don't enjoy the thought of jogging, but you go do it and you feel better, and you have to just go through things to know how you feel about them. And maybe that's just the thing with getting older is, I talked to my daughter who's 16 and she has so many stresses about things. And once she gets through them, her opinion is going to change, but you can't really tell them that other than be encouraging, but you can't just say, your feelings are irrational because you're young. You can't just come out and say that. So you have to gently dance around it and be guiding and reassertive, and you'll figure it out and things will be fine. But again, until you go through stuff and you get older, you have no idea. But like I said, you just start to develop the feeling within yourself that I know whatever I go through, that I am at least mentally prepared to be able to go through it, even if it's an unknown. And that is a big freedom, I believe.
Yeah, my father was really good at that. So I have a lot of story with him. When he was still alive, and it was in Saint-Tropez, I would go there for the summer to work, like 1 or 2 months. One day I came to Saint-Tropez and I said, okay, I want to make money. I'm going to work to McDonald's. I'm going to stop going to school. I'm bored in school. It's not interesting, and so on and so on. Stupid teenager thing. Like, money is king. I can do whatever I want with money. And he said, okay, sure. And he put me into working in a kebab shop on the port of Saint-Tropez.
Nice.
I was doing 350 kebabs a day. And then I used to work like 6-7 hours. And my girlfriend of the time was with me at my father's place. And he was like, oh, she's doing nothing. She can't stay doing nothing. She will go with you. She lasted 3 days before quitting. And then the boss of the kebab shop saying, well, you brought in her. It's your responsibility now to handle her work. So I was doing 11 hours a day. I lost 11 kilos in a month. I couldn't eat anything because I was full of kebab oil all day long by 50 degrees Celsius. It's like only ice cream and water was my feeding for like a full month. And so I learned 2 things. Life is good when you have skills. And life is shit when you don't. And responsibility and accountability is something that is expected from you, and you can't run away from it.
Nope, that's true.
And so my father was like, you're cute. Let's do that. And then I did the same year later. I was like, I want to be a boat skipper, because he was a broker for yachts. It's like, okay, well, you have motion sickness. Yeah, but it will be okay, I'm sure, blah, blah, blah. It's like, fine. Here is a boat. Go to Nice, Cannes, and come back. It's like 6 hours on the boat. Sick like crazy. I came back, I'm like, nah, finally, I'm not going to do that. I'm going back to school. So it was like, I'm not going to tell you anything. Go experiment. Go learn. And that was a great way. That was a great way to do it, because you can tell people whatever you want until they experiment it. They're not going to know. And I think the freedom that we're gaining through the age passing by is a bit about that also. Because we experiment, we test so many things, we learn what we like, what we don't like, where we're good at, where we're bad at, and we go through that motion.
Right. And I think it's just not being afraid to try the new things. The more you do stuff, whether it sucked or not, you at least know that, okay, I'm going to try this and I'm going to get something out of it, some kind of knowledge. It's funny because I live in Germany, and their whole education and their work process is way different than in the States. The States, I got my first job when I was like 12, you know what I mean? And just doing odd jobs. And then I went through my teens and I worked at McDonald's, and I lost count of how many jobs I've had in my life, and some really sucked and some were better than others. But, I learned a lot of things. And my wife, my kids tease me all the time because they say, well, did you, what was it? Yesterday they were saying, I was saying, it was something about like, did you ever eat rabbit, And they were like, so people eat rabbit? And we're like, yeah, when I lived on the farm, we went hunting because we needed food in the winter. So we went and ate rabbit. And you said, well, of course you ate rabbit because you've done everything. Well, I was like, what was it like on the moon? Did you go to the moon too? And I was like, no, I didn't go to the moon, but I'd be surprised if the opportunity doesn't happen at some point in my life. It'd be a janitor on the rocket ship on the, I mean, something like that. They always tease me because I've done everything. Or I've at least been involved in something that seemed like it was every sector of the world, and, even though I didn't become the CEO of every single business I worked at, I have done a lot of things in my life. And I think back to some of the things were terrible, flipping burgers for 8 hours a day, or working all night to be a janitor in an auto dealership, or just all this random crap, delivering storage lockers to the emergency in the operating rooms where you go in and there's still a corpse laying there because they died, and just all this stuff that soaks into your brain that you learn from. And then finally, what was it? I went on a band, they got a big record deal, and we went on tour for a year, and then the record deal got dropped. And I was 30 something, and I came back off a tour and was down in LA, and I, got a plane back to my apartment or my condo in Seattle, and made a decision. Wow, this music thing is really not paying the bills anymore. And I think it was like MP3s and file sharing just happened, Napster and all that shit. And I was like, Napster, wow, man, the record industry, the music industry is failing now. It's not a business model that I'm going to get rich at, or, it's way more luck than just process at this point. And so I decided, okay, I better learn about this computer thing, So I got to use computer for my folks, and I went to the library and got a box of VCR tapes on Photoshop. That's how old I am, but, and then I got an administrative job at a newspaper. And I remember sitting there and just typing some stuff in my first job. It was the first administrative job I ever had. And I was like, this is all people do all fucking day. Like I literally was like, blisters on my feet and hands are bleeding, and going through the motions of all these labor jobs, until in my 30s even, you know what I mean? And then I got a job working at a desk, and I was like, wow, this is so not difficult, but there's a whole new layer of finesse that I don't know, you know what I mean? Of just the inner office politics and the communication and all that stuff. Cause I was raw, you know what I mean? I was just saying all kinds of dumb shit in an office, and that didn't float either, but, my boss handed me, it was like, I forget what it was. It was the 7 Laws of Leadership or some kind of book. Cause you should start reading this stuff. And that opened up a whole different world of there's an intellectual layer that I have no experience on, you know what I mean? That I needed to improve in my life. And so, it's going from one challenge to a different challenge that feels easy, but it's completely complicated at the same time, and it's just that learning process that it's constant, and I was in my 30s and I thought, wow, it's, either my life is over because I'm not going to be a touring musician anymore, you know what I mean? And then you get a different job and it's a whole new world. And, it changed me a lot, just learning different things about business and marketing and politics and all these kind of things that opened up a new whole set of challenges that I'm still working on, that just constant state of learning and improving and being confident in yourself. And I think that eventually got to a point where you were confident there. And maybe with this therapy thing, it'll open up an empty box in my brain and I have another area I go to. I don't know what yet, but maybe there's a whole new adventure of challenges and unknown that I'll step into. But that freedom of being okay with that, is, I think, eye-opening, at least in the past couple of years, because it's more of just like things are changing and I feel kind of good, but I still don't really have a full understanding of it. But now it's more just like, okay, I really understand now that it's all up to me to just address that and take action on it, whatever that action is, and being comfortable with that and not being afraid. And also maybe this shit from my childhood that you're kind of squeezing off with this therapy is also removing that fear, I guess, or identifying the fear that you didn't even know was a fear, because there's so many blocks in your brain that you don't even know about until you actually address them.
Yeah, that's a good point. The process of personal growth and personal development is a process of freedom. Right. So, the more you learn, the more you grow, the more easy it is to control your freedom and to say, okay, yeah, that's not for me. That's fine. I have all those skills. I have all those things. I can move on. And you go through all that motion, all that learning. You go through, oh, no, I know more about myself also. And, oh, this is a whole Pandora box that I'm opening there about things that I actually need to work on. Because then I'm gaining even more freedom. And that's the thing, when you were a musician, I'm sure freedom for you was touring at that time. Being on tour, doing music. Right. And then freedom became, oh, no, I have to learn about leadership, about all those things, and gain more freedom to that job where I'm in a comfortable chair at a comfortable desk. And then no, it's like, okay, I have a dog. I'm going through walks. And, oh, I'm working on, my past trauma. And then I'm skimming that away is another freedom layer. And that the thing, I think, for me, freedom is something that you layer. It's changed through your life and you layer on top of it. Like, oh, there is new aspect to it. Oh, there is a new step to it. It's not like, oh, I'm free or I'm not. Because there is so many part of it. And, there is a tool that I call the Wheel of Freedom that you look at all the areas of your life, like your relationship. How is your freedom in your relationship? How is your freedom in your money? How is your freedom in your health? How is your freedom in, your companionship, the people around you? Simple thing like your health, I hate going to the gym, but the gym gave me freedom for my health because I have a better body, better energy. I'm feeling better. I'm less sick. Not comfortable, but another way to gain some freedom. So we have been talking for quite some time, so I have like 2 or 3 more questions that I really want to squeeze in. The first one is, what is one thing you wish people would forget about their conception of freedom?
Well, it's pretty it's not an eye-opening new thing, but I think it's really, even though I'm no millionaire, I think it's really, freedom isn't about stuff and things that you'll get. You know what I mean? There is no, I get to this point and then I will be free. You know what I mean? That's an illusion. I think they need to lose that, and they need to realize that freedom is what you make it. And once you get to that point, then you start to analyze and start to make steps to improve, because there'll never be a point in the future that you'll achieve. That never comes. You'll be dead. Maybe there's a whole freedom from there, but nobody knows. So, that freedom is not a thing that you will eventually achieve. It's not a future point. It is now. It's just about how you deal with it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because if you look at material things that you want, like, let's take an iPhone. Like, my iPhone is iPhone 13 of something, I think, or 14. But if you look at it, there is already 15, and then in the next week there will be 16. So if you base yourself on that, you always want something more. Like when you achieve it, and then I don't remember who said it, but a millionaire said it. It's like, at one point you have everything, because you're making so much money as a millionaire that there is nothing to buy anymore, because you could buy everything. And that's where you become sad. And that's where he basically said, like, for him, he didn't spend money anymore. He's just achieving because he want to achieve more. but for him, he was really free since a long time.
I think so.
And I've seen that in countries that are actually, like if you look at Europe and United States, where it's a high consumption society, people are not really happy. Like if you go in the subway in Paris, you don't see a lot of people smiling. I'm
Not so
sorry
much,
to
no.
say. and I've seen country where people are far less and they're much more happy because they have a roof, they have food, and they entertain themselves. And they're like, yeah, we have what we need for surviving and living a life which is okay. And then especially, I've seen it especially into more of the Central Asian culture, Mongolia or even Southeast Asia, where people are like, as long as they live properly, they have a life of substantial food and housing, and then they're mostly happy.
Yeah. I think so.
Like they don't have $6,000 every day on every month on their bank account. They don't care. They don't need it. They just want what they need to live and maybe invest and protect their next generation. But I think that's the point. I'm like you. I think people should forget a lot about, the hardware part of freedom.
Yeah.
Let's say it that way. The hardware part. I like
I
the
think
term.
so. I just, you got me thinking. It's, when I was younger, I worked in a lot of guitar shops, and there was always amazing guitars on the walls, and could always just pick one up and play it. And there's always this, I need to get that one. I need to get that one. I need to get that one. And there's always this feeling of there's more gear I need to get, and the latest gear comes out. I need to get that. And, I got a stack of guitars here, and then you remind me of something is, as I scroll my phone on Instagram, I follow these guitar, channels or whatever. And this amazing custom shop, something for $20,000 pops up, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. And then I flip again, and there's this 9-year-old kid sitting at his parents', I don't know, whatever it is, noodle shop in Jakarta or something, in the middle of a crowd with one guitar playing, shredding more intricately than anything I could even think of doing. You know what I mean? And I'm like, this little fucker, you know what I mean? But the thing is that dude is probably so incredibly happy because he's got this one thing and he is applying himself to it on a daily basis. When all I'm doing is flipping my phone and wishing I had one more goddamn thing, as opposed to just picking up my guitar. It stays in tune just like his guitar does, or just like that $20,000 guitar on the wall does. Sounds exactly the same for the most part. Computers, you can fake it anyway. So my happiness has nothing to do with one more guitar, and it's still something in your brain is like, I wish I had that thing, But the reality is, if you just pick up the damn guitar and get better, you're going to be so much happier, and be more free even, because you don't need all that extra stuff, maybe I need a new pair of strings every once in a while, or I need some electricity to make it work. But for the most part, I don't need that big fancy thing. And especially with cars, I really got to that realization too. When I was younger, it's like, I really need to build that vintage muscle car. I really want that, I don't know, a Ferrari or something. And now it's like, just give me a newer car that runs and doesn't break down, and I don't need anything else, especially as a parent and getting to work every day and needing enough space to put stuff in to take a vacation. I literally don't need anything else, nor do I really want it. And I think that even if I was a bazillionaire, I don't know. Maybe I would, but I don't think I would just go out and just buy a bunch of junk, especially amazing cars, because it's so not a necessity for me anymore. It's a necessity that I don't have to fix the damn car anymore. You know what I mean? That it just runs. And that's freedom. You know what I mean? It's freedom is just not having that nagging I need feeling. And it's just like, I got the thing and it's taken care of. You know what I mean? I can go out and get the car. I know it runs. I know I make enough money to fix it if it's broken. If something goes to shit, at least I'll get a loan to buy another one that just does the job. And I don't need a fancy label. I don't need custom leather seats. I just need the thing to turn on and get me to the place, and I'm good to go. That whole chunk of my life is managed, you know what I mean? And that's freedom to me. That's taken care of. And I think the older I get, the more I want to just achieve those feelings, you know what I mean? That I don't have that nagging desire for something else all the time, you know what I mean? So I can appreciate
I know.
and that's, you know.
Well, car story. I don't own a car. I rent a car because in Taiwan, it's complex here to own a car. But that's not only the reason. The reason is because I rent the car as leasing, they take care of insurance. They take care of any repairs that are now needed on the car. They take care of all the technical controls and everything is taken care of. I just pick up the damn car, drive the damn car. If I have a problem, I call them. They fix everything. That's for me. That's freedom. It's like, what do I need more? and right now it's not a great car because I change every 3 months due to the leasing thing. But for me, a good car is a car with a space for my wife, my kid, my dog, me, and I go from A to B and B to C without breaking down and being comfortable to drive. That's all. But I still would love to own one of the old Mustang or one of those old American Shelby. Great car. I would love to own them because those are incredible creations. But do I need it? Hell no, I don't. And I have a rule that I instilled for myself, and I think more people should have that kind of rule, and it will help them a lot. When I buy something, I look at the ROI, which is a return on investment, in 2 ways. So what I'm saying is when you buy something, I look at the ROI of it. And what I mean by ROI is a bit special. So if I take a piece of technology, will that piece of technology make me money? Or is it just a gadget? Or will that piece of technology help me track my health or give me a positive aspect in my life? Or is it just something that I need because I fancy it? So that's the first rule. This technology, I always go looking at that. Other than that, it's like, will that bring something positive to my life in the long run? So you have a guitar, I have a guqin, which is a Chinese instrument. 3,000 years old kind of type of instrument, the ancestor of guitar. I could not buy it, but then, playing it from time to time is still good relaxation for me. So that's the thing. Is it actually bringing you something valuable, or is it just your need of that object? Like, I would love to have a better equipment here to record the podcast and do my online classes and all of that. But what I have right now is good enough for me. I don't want to spend more money right now in that because I don't have the need for it. In the future, will I do it? Maybe, but not right now. That will not bring me anything more.
Right.
Same, you said, you have that microphone. You bought it, now you're stuck with it. It's not a bad microphone, so you don't really need to change it.
Right. No desire to. I think it also, we talk about material things. I think there's emotional things as well. Like, I think when I was younger, I always got my identity from sort of the subculture I was in, the types of music I listened to, and it really you felt like it defined who you were, you know what I mean? And like, I like this band, this guy likes that band, we can't get along, you know what I mean? And this identity, this invisible thing that you build for yourself that really makes it difficult to just branch out and engage with other people or get to learn them more, because you have this barrier. And I mean, I'm not even talking about big things like racial or all this kind of stuff, but it's just like this invisible shit that you build for yourself, especially as a kid, that I've noticed that existed in me for a long time. You know what I mean? It's like, if they don't like the type of music I do, then they're a different type of person. You know what I mean? Or I'm the musician person. They're the business people. You know what I mean? And that's, I think when I got that desk job, that really like, wait a minute, I'm a musician guy, but these are the business people, and this is all right. There's what's up here. You know what I mean? I had such a conflicting confusion in my brain. You know what I mean? That there was always this, those are the other people, those are the drab, normal working people. And I was some special something because I had all this alternative pseudo intellectual music shit in my head. You know what I mean? That I think when I got to that realization, that was a different kind of freeing thing too, is like people in the rest of the world aren't totally different than you just because you like a certain band or you dress a certain way or you have a certain haircut or whatever. And that was a pretty big thing. I mean, just like the car, you know what I mean? It's always this, you have to do this thing, otherwise you are not this picture of yourself. You know what I mean? And once you break that picture of yourself and realize that it's all superficial, then it's a whole different level of freedom, that comes at you there.
Yeah, the fight between pop and rock, metal and rock.
All of that. There was the rockers and the punkers and the stoners and all these things when you're a kid. And I'm almost embarrassed to admit that stuck with me for so long in my life, that I really could not get past that. You know what I mean? And even in America, you go to different parts of the country where, in your brain, you think these people are much more simple than I am because I know about all this stuff, all this cultural blah, blah, you know what I mean? And when you really go and you sit down with somebody in some other place and they're just honest with you, regardless of their beliefs, or their experiences or whatever they do, and you get to this realization that these people are really just the same, and you can appreciate some of those things that they have that you don't, or their way they live or whatever, then it's really it is freeing as well to at least be able to shed that stuff in yourself too. My musical identity was such a thing for some reason that really had to shake that off. And it still comes up. Like, it's like, I quit smoking a long time ago, but every once in a while you pass by and you smell cigarette smoke. Those little neurons those patterns are still there, and they still like blink, and you're like, you know what I mean? But it's still there. Then you have to like build padding around that to realize, no, this is not where I want to be anymore. You know what I mean? And it's not just things. It's not just addictions. It's not just, it's just this made up
identity
that's in your brain. Yeah. That really is, once you shed that, it really makes up, opens up a whole world,
shifting identity. That's actually a really critical part of mindset. I think we should teach that, like how to create your own identity and shift.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really important for people. Honestly.
Definitely. So now that we have looked at one thing that you want them to forget about it, what is one advice, one strategy, one thing that you would want to give to people and say, hey, this is maybe not the thing, but this is a thing that you should look at?
Yeah. Well, I guess I touched on it a little bit already, but it's more just make a decision in yourself to want to, if not improve, but analyze yourself more productively, I guess. So many people, like I said, they just go through the motions and they really don't think about, like you said, you have the chart that identifies the different sectors of your life or personality, whatever those categorizations are, but unless you really look at those categories and realize, okay, those are touch points that need to be analyzed, am I comfortable with them or am I not? And until you actually look at that sort of list of things that you need to address about yourself, you have no idea how much better things can be for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And you really have to make a conscious decision to set a next step. What is always the next step, and where do you want to go? And like I said, I'm definitely no expert at it. I'm constantly finding things that, wow, that's a thing that I need to work on because I never realized that was a thing before, but unless you identify those things, you will never break out of that box. You'll never change yourself and you'll stay in the pattern. And I think it's really important to have consultation from somebody or some course or some book or whatever it is that helps you identify those things so that you can start to break them apart. And whether it's a therapy, whether it's a coach like you, or whether it's something you really, there's so many people who just think, I don't need help because I'm fine, or they're so, you're never fine. You know what I mean? And I guess that's what you need to realize about yourself. There's always something you can improve about yourself that will make you a better person. And, even if you think you're the most amazing self-together person, there are always going to be stuff that you can work on that'll make you even more amazing, and whether it makes you arrogant or whether it makes you more self-confident or self-conscious even, you can still benefit from that analysis, and that making a goal to change or improve or forget or whatever you need to do with that thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. As a coach, I'm a coach because I know I fucked up so much. I know my life was so, and I've been through that motion, and I continue to go through that motion, and I would continue from my life. And that's why also the first thing that I created and gave away was the self-awareness workbook, because I think like the sentence that I used to hear the most in the 90s was, oh, why do people have psychologists or psychiatrists? That's not useful. We're all good. We don't need that. Oh, that's so American. Because at the time in Europe, it was like not a thing. In the 90s, it was like actually something bad. You had to have problems to go there. And now people are starting to understand, no, you don't have to have problems to go there. You just need to have the willingness to actually unpack what you have and grow. And I'm really happy about seeing the industry change into that, oh, they have mental health issue too. Oh, yeah, we can actually all benefit from it.
And I was guilty of that too. I was always like, no, I'm not so messed up that I need to go to a therapist, because again, there was always a negative connotation. And now I think, that's another, to your question, I think it's another thing is, think of therapy, think of coaching, think of it as in performance enhancement. You know what I mean? It's like going to the gym. It's like, I want to be ripped. You know what I mean? I want to be in amazing shape. I need to go and I need to work on myself, because there's no gym to
the brain,
fix your brain. You know what I mean? Other than to go to coaching or go to people who can help you analyze those things that need improvement. And that's really, I think that is really a really underrated thing in society right now. It's this stigma about mental health. It's people need to put it right up there with going to the gym or getting a haircut or whatever.
Yeah. And I'm sure you know Tony Robbins, but if you look at him, basically he works with presidents, athletes. He works with the elite of the elite.
Right.
He's been doing that for 40 years. It was one of the first big coaches that ever existed. And he basically built the field with some other coaches to what it is today. But those people are the highest achiever that you can find right now in society. And they are having a coach. So if they benefit from a coach, how can we not benefit from coaching, therapy, or, just simple awareness of it? I think that's something that I would like to see more people understanding, is like all those tools that exist today, they never existed before. And there is a good book don't remember the title, but basically say that we are going to live more than 100 years old. But our brain and the way we take care of our brain has not changed nearly since the start of time. Our body, we have more medicine, we have more protein, we have more, healthcare. All of that, we have worked a lot on the body, and the brain has still so much work to do there.
Yep.
And I think
so much work to do, and so much just acceptance of that's a fact. I mean, you mentioned Tony, and I mean his book, Awake the Sleeping Giant Within, was really, really pivotal to me to kind of realize that this need for mental improvement was a thing. You know what I mean? And I think you mentioned all these sort of, high achievers and stuff, and they go to these Tony Robbins, these high level rah-rah events, and it's almost a status symbol to spend $30K to go to some retreat in Bali to walk through fire on the beach and say, we did this thing. But you don't, not to discount these types of people, because they can be very effective. I mean, he was very, very impactful for me, hats off to Tony Robbins, but you don't need that either. You know what I mean? You just need somebody that you relate to, that can help, that has enough structure and guidance to be able to help you, and that's really what it's about. It's not about the status level for acceptance, because either you go to the coach or the therapist because they say you got a problem, or you go to the rah-rah event because it's a status thing. And I think we need to get past that for sure. We need to say, just like, it's like, I almost sometimes I still have this reservation to tell my boss, I got a therapy appointment. You know what I mean? You can say I'm going to the doctor. You can say I'm doing this thing, but you can't say I got a therapy appointment, because people are going to be like, oh, what the fuck? This guy's crazy. You know what I mean? And it's not. It's like, I say I'm going to the gym. They're like, yeah, you go, man. And you should be able to say I'm going to therapy. I'm going to my coach. It should be just as socially acceptable, I think, if not more, because you can be really physically unfit, but if your brain is where it needs to be, the rest kind of follows, what I mean? Or you're comfortable in who you are physically, but I think mental health really has such a stigma that we need to clear out in life.
Well, the fun fact, and this happened to me in Germany when I was taking one of the leadership positions. I had a coach which was appointed by the company. So it was paid by the company to help me improve my leadership at the time, improve, everything. The thing is, and I give you that as a homework because I'm sure you will have fun doing it. When next time you have a therapist appointment, don't say you go to your therapist. You just say, hey, I'm going to my coach, and see how people react. The thing that I've discovered is actually therapy has a more negative connotation for people, and coaching is more like, why are you even doing that? It's so not useful. So try it, you will see. I've done it.
It makes people think like, do I need a coach too? You know what I mean? It makes people, it changes that. That's a good mental kung fu. I like that.
Yeah. And I think on that would be the end of the podcast for today. Sean, really grateful for the discussion with you. It's always a pleasure. It's always a nice discussion. And
always great talking to you, man.
Yeah. It's been quite a long episode. I think we have some cutting to do. But was a pleasure. Thank you, Sean. And I see you on the next episode for sure.
All right, man. Bye.
Cheers.